Hello everyone, and welcome to another fragrance review. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a fragrance from the niche house of Xerjoff, and the fragrance is called More Than Words. Now, More Than Words was released in 2012, and while the perfumer for this fragrance has not been made available to the public, it could be one of three people. It could be Sergio Momo, who is also the creative director for this house, and I believe he's a perfumer as well. It could be Sonia Espelta or Laura Santander. Those are other two perfumers who have worked very closely with the house of Xerjoff in the past. So with this fragrance, it's an oriental fragrance, and it's part of a collection of fragrances called the Join the Club collection. So Xerjoff, as an Italian niche house, they have been around since 2009. They currently have 57 fragrances in their database. So the earliest line was released back in 2009, and the lines include but are not limited to the XJ1717 collection, which I believe is the most expensive one. They have the Oud Stars collection, the Shooting Stars collection, Sospiro, Casamarati, as well as a few others. So in 2012, they decided to release a bunch of fragrances under a line of fragrances called the Join the Club collection. And each one of those fragrances is based off of a different imaginary virtual club. So what happens is you buy the fragrance, you open up the box. Inside the box there's a card with a website on it. You go to that website, you type in the number that's on the card, and then, as the name implies, you join the club. Once you become a part of that club, you see other people who also own that fragrance, and it's a virtual club that's created from you buying the fragrance. So each fragrance is based off of a different virtual club. We have Comandante, which is for fine cigar lovers. We have Marquis, which is a theater club. We have 40 Knots, which is a yacht or sailing club. And then we have More Than Words, which is based off of a poetry club. So I'm going to let you know what I think of this fragrance, but next up, let's take a look at the presentation for More Than Words by Xerjoff. More Than Words by Xerjoff is available in one size only, and that's 50 milliliters, and is only available in eau de parfum concentration. First up, let's take a look at the box, and before I begin, I just want to say that it comes with this sleeve right around the box that has the Xerjoff logo up here at the top, some information down here at the bottom, and then some more words about the company here on either side of the sleeve. When you remove the sleeve, it exposes the box. This is what the box looks like. It has a logo here on the front, the name of the company, the name of the fragrance, nothing going on at the sides, made in Italy down here at the bottom, and then at the very bottom you have another sticker with your batch number up here in the upper right hand corner, and then the Join the Club logo here. Now when this opens up, it reveals this blue stripe pattern on the inside. Kind of reminds me of like a tie or something. And then this doesn't actually even feel like cardboard. It feels more like a very hard foam. And this is where the bottle rests very securely, and that's how you find it when you open it up. Now over here there's a little slot right in behind the bottle, and that's where the Join the Club card is found. So you remove it, and then this is a card. On the reverse side there's actually a number that you put in online, and you join the virtual club by doing so. So let's take a look at the bottle. With the bottle, it says More Than Words here in the front. They actually go into detail about how the bottle is not painted blue, but it's an actual blue glass bottle. I respect that. I will actually accept that and believe them. You have the traditional Xerjoff cap. It almost looks like it could be used as a weapon. There's actually a lot of weight to it. It has Xerjoff engraved here in the front, and that's pretty much the bottle. You open it up. The atomizer for this fragrance works very well. Nice distribution, and I think it sprays out a lot of juice relative to the concentration of the fragrance. The cap clicks into place, and that has pretty much been the presentation for More Than Words by Xerjoff. When you first spray on More Than Words, you're going to get this very sparkling, effervescent feel in the opening. I don't think there's any citrus in this composition, but it opens up very bright, very sparkling, and this is one of the most hypnotizing scents that I have ever come across. In the opening, it's really going to attract you. It's going to lure you in. It's very meretricious in its way of really luring you in and giving you this hypnotic feel when you first smell it. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to say right off the bat that this is one of my top 10 favorite fragrances ever. I never thought that I would say that, especially for such a recent acquisition. I haven't gotten a chance to spend all that much time with it, enough to really be able to review it, but I really foresee myself liking this fragrance a lot in the coming future. Now, it's going to open up with that very bright, sparkling introduction, and you also get this oud rose combo that you will find hauntingly familiar. Now, when I first smelled this fragrance, I knew right away that this is a combination of notes that I have experienced before. I know there's one by Armani called Rose d'Arabie, which is said to smell very similar to this one. Quite personally, I have not smelled the Armani, but I have heard so from a credible source that it does smell similar, and I will take his word for it. So that, and then there's also a fragrance by Botica the Victorious called Imperial. Now, if you like the smell of labdanum, that sweet, resinous note with a vanillic overtone, Imperial is much sweeter than this one, so I would recommend you check that out if you're looking for a sweeter fragrance. This one has a great balance of notes. That's what I like about this fragrance. It's very intricate in the way that they pulled off the technical aspects of the composition. It opens up, like I said, with this effervescent sparkling feel. As it dries down, the rose becomes much more noticeable, and I know it's floral notes that are listed, but the predominant one of those floral notes is indeed the rose. And then you get a little bit of oud in the background. It's totally inoffensive. It's very wearable. It's not going to offend or choke anybody out. And I feel like it tones down the other sweet aspects of this fragrance perfectly. Now, Oriental notes is an accord listed in this fragrance, and I believe that the two Oriental notes that really constitute this fragrance are the patchouli and vanilla. Now, I had a hard time discerning what is the labdanum and what is the vanilla in this fragrance because it's sweet. In the dry down, it could be either one of those two. I am definitely going to say that there's more labdanum than vanilla in this fragrance, but there's also just a pinch of patchouli in the dry down that does become noticeable in its third or fourth hour as this fragrance dries down. Now, there isn't as much patchouli in here as there is in Birdie, which is another Xerjoff Join the Club fragrance, but there's just enough to make it tasteful but not overbearing. Now, the note of labdanum, like I said, it's a resinous ingredient with a vanillic overtone, and you are going to get a lot of it despite saying that it's not going to be overly sweet. You do get a lot of it, and I feel like it complements the fruity notes very well. So I can't quite put my finger on what I smell in this fragrance. Could be plum, could be some other fruity notes, somewhat reminiscent to Frapin's 1270, but not exactly that fruity. This fragrance I don't think is boozy. I think it's a great combination of a bunch of different notes, all playing a different role, all having different olfactory properties, and I think that when they join in together, it just offers this really awesome and unique blend. And like I said in the opening, it's very hypnotizing, and I really love that. I really appreciate that about this fragrance. Now, the bottom line is you're going to get a fragrance that opens up very sweet, very sparkling, very hypnotic introduction. The patchouli, the vanilla, the labdanum, the oud. I know there are woodsy notes and frankincense listed as a note as well, which is olibanum. I don't get too much of that. Although I do find this fragrance to be slightly smoky, I don't get a lot of frankincense, so don't worry about this fragrance smelling overly smoky, overly incensey, or anything like that. And the one other note that you really get the most of in this dry down, after this fragrance dries down in like the 6th hour, is the note of ambergris. Now, for those of you who don't know, ambergris is this dark, opaque, charcoal colored matter that's found in the digestive tract of sperm whales. It's actually become illegal, or the harvesting of it has become illegal in many countries, and a single gram of ambergris sells for as much as $1,000. So this fragrance smells very natural to me. Now, I don't know if they're using natural ambergris or the synthetic aroma chemical counterpart, which is known as ambroxan, but if indeed they are using natural ambergris, that would justify the price of this fragrance. So it does have this very staticky, regal, kind of like crispy undertone in the fragrance that just comes across as very royal, very sophisticated, and very expensive as well too. Overall, this fragrance is just amazing, and the fact that it's part of the Join the Club line, which is the more affordable line from the House of Xerjoff, this was a very easy buy for me. I knew the moment I smelled it that I had to have it. So in terms of compliments or complaints, this fragrance is going to land you a compliment for sure. I've only worn this in public 6 or 7 times, but I have gotten 5 compliments of those 6 times that I've worn it in public. 2 of those times, I actually had the person asking me to write it down for them because they wanted to go ahead and buy it for themselves. You're definitely going to get noticed with this fragrance, especially because the performance is so good. And lastly, have I worn this fragrance outside of testing? Yes, absolutely. And I definitely anticipate wearing this fragrance a lot in the spring season as well. So there you have it. That was the smell of More Than Words by Xerjoff. Last up, we have the rating. Take care. First up, we have Uniqueness and overall smell, and I ended up giving this fragrance a 9 out of 10. Now, I don't think that this is an entirely unique composition, especially considering that there are other fragrances who do that oud-rose combo and do it very well. So, of course, there's one from the house of Armani called Rose d'Arabie, which bears striking similarities to this fragrance, or so I've heard, and that fragrance preceded this one. So the aesthetic merit has to go to that fragrance, but nevertheless, I think that this is a unique take on oud and rose. This is also a unique take on an oriental fragrance. Now, fixatives were used entirely successfully, hence the reason why this fragrance lasts as long as it does, and I do think that some creative risks were taken with this fragrance. The overall smell is an amazing one. It's hypnotic, it's alluring, and I would even venture to say that it's seductive. So I ended up giving it a 9 out of 10 for uniqueness and overall smell. Next up we have longevity, and I gave this fragrance a perfect 10 out of 10. Now this fragrance does last on my skin 12+ hours. Every time if you spray it on clothes, it's going to last on there for days or until you wash those clothes. And I also want to mention that the concentration of aromatic compounds in this fragrance is set at 29%. So even though it's marked as an eau de parfum, it really behaves more like an extrait de parfum. So please keep that in mind. The longevity is excellent for this fragrance. I gave it a 10 out of 10. Next up we have projection. I also gave this fragrance a 10 out of 10. For about 5 to 6 hours, this fragrance radiates about an arm's length, possibly even beyond an arm's length. It's really only around that mark that it starts to sit closer to the skin, but it's not until the last couple hours of its performance and longevity that it becomes a skin scent. But even then, the smell is amazing, and this one projects very, very well for an eau de parfum. I ended up giving it a 10 out of 10. Next up we have Versatility. I gave this fragrance an 8 out of 10. Now I do think this is a unisex fragrance, and I would consider it a 25 and up fragrance. I think in terms of social scenarios, you can really wear it whenever you want except for casually. I think that the price point for this fragrance doesn't really justify it being worn casually, even though I'm just crazy like that, but I can see this one being more of like a suit and tie or a romantic date fragrance because of its sweetness. Now in terms of seasons, I would wear this one in the fall and winter mostly. Because of the rose note in this fragrance, I can definitely see this one being pulled off in the spring. I just probably wouldn't wear it in the dead of summer because it has such great performance. So overall, I gave it an 8 out of 10 for versatility. And then last up, we have the presentation. I already told you what I think about that. I ended up giving it a 10 out of 10. And then that brings this fragrance to an overall rating or an average score of 9.4 out of 10. But this fragrance might as well be a 10 out of 10. I really consider it a great, amazing fragrance. So there you have it. That was my review of More Than Words by Xerjoff. If you own or have tried this fragrance, please let me know what you think by leaving a comment down below. Also, please don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to shoot me a message. I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. And once again, this has been Steven with another fragrance review from Adolescence. Thanks for watching.